Today, we are doing a special episode just on my post workflow and techniques thanks to our partners at HP. And yes, HP is a partner for this video, but as you know, HP has been my go-to system since I switched over from Apple 3 years ago. Now right here, we have their HP ZBook Studio workstation. This one has their NVIDIA Quadro M1000M with 4 gigs of video RAM and the Intel Xeon E3 1005M processor. It's a crazy little thing, light and fast, but enough with the gear loving, let's jump into the edit. What we're gonna be looking at is one of the action scenes we released recently. I cut all of this in Adobe Premiere on an HP, and what makes it more interesting is that I'm editing with native 6K red footage right inside of Premiere without any transcoding. Of course, I might drop my playback quality just a little bit since the original is 6K, but even at 1/4, it's still looking good, so you aren't having to look at ugly footage while editing since you do have that original 6K file. But jumping right in, what we're going to talk about is not basic editing, but instead some of the techniques I use when editing action to make the most exciting scene possible. So we have this moment here, which I already have assembled, and if we scrub through, you can see my thought process behind how this unfolds. Once the baddie swings and gets knocked out by the bottle, we cut to our good guy's reaction of the beer being gone. Then we get ahead of our hero for a moment as we see the other baddie coming for him. Then we get his reaction to something we don't see, and then we cut to see what he's reacting to. So a lot of this buildup is about action, then reaction. And I always do my first draft edit using selects, meaning I have another timeline open here that I have selected the best takes from, and I've also synced my audio to video so I can easily pull from these to edit much quicker once I'm into it. But it's the small invisible things that make up my personal technique for creating an exciting fight scene. First thing is speed ramping. So take this hit here. It looks good as is, but I want to add a bit more intensity to it. So I'll right click here, select time remapping, then go to the point that you want the speed change to start, control click, move to the point you want it to stop, control click again, then grab and drag to increase the speed. Next, we can grab the handles here and drag them out, and this is going to create a ramp between the speeds to smooth it out if that's what you want. Next, I'll go a little further, create more points, and adjust my speed again. The idea here is to speed up small sections, then go right back to normal speed so these speed increases don't become noticeable to the average viewer, but you end up making the fight feel that much more intense. Another thing that you can do is to cut a frame at the impact of a hit. So take this hit here. If we go just after the impact and remove one frame, piece it back together, we have a subtle and invisible increase in the intensity of that hit since we are skipping a moment in time. And the final of my 3 invisible things is extending limbs. So if we look here at the original shot, we see that at the impact point, the fist looks like it's in front of our hero's face, not making contact, and the reaction is also a frame late. So we'll trim out one frame and we have the reaction on time, but we still have the issue of the hit being too low and not selling completely. But we can fix this. So we will right click and send to After Effects. Inside of After Effects, I'll duplicate my clip, mask out just the arm, and reposition it to be where I want it to be. Then I'll trim this to 1 frame. Then I'll duplicate the original shot again, trim to 1 frame, make sure it's under the arm layer, then roll to a moment just before the fist covers his face, mask around this area, and adjust it to blend with our shot on the bottom. So now we have removed the original placement of the fist and relocated it to where it will be a more effective looking hit. And of course, I'm doing all of this on my HP workstation without any lag, which is pretty amazing since I can and have done editing like this in cars and on airplanes. It's just really helpful to have the option to be mobile like this. But of course, the final thing that really pulls all of this together is sound, which I like to layer as much of my sound design as I possibly can in Premiere before I move out to Audition, editing in my hits and music and keeping them all organized so that all the effects are on specific tracks, production sounds have their own tracks, and of course music has its own track. Then once I have my locked edit, I'll go to Edit, Edit and Audition, and Sequence. And this will send my entire Premiere sequence to Audition, including reference video for me to use while I edit the sound. For all my hits here, I'm turning them from stereo to mono to make them feel like they were in that space recorded by the location mic. And then I'll add reverb to help glue all that to the space as well. My current favorite reverb plugin is Valhalla Room. Renders a really solid and natural sound, and it's only $50. Then when it comes to mixing, although the HP workstation speakers are really impressive, they weren't made for detailed mixing. So for that, my favorite go-to headphones are the Meze 99 Classics. I tried a ton of different headphones, but for my money, this has been the best for really nailing down my edit. They're super comfortable too, but I'll get into these more in another episode. But once I finished my mix, I'll export my mix down and bring that into Premiere for my final export. So I'll duplicate my sequence, delete all the sound, and then drop in my final sound file. After that, all that's left to do is add my color correction and grade, then export, which I'll click my sequence and hit Control E. This will bring up my export window, and since I'm going to YouTube for this one, I'm gonna select H.264 as my format, leave the basic video option to match the source, check render at maximum depth, set my bitrate high to somewhere around 30 or 40. Since this is for a short film, for FilmRiot, I'll usually settle the bitrate around 20, but then check use max render quality, then click Q, which this will open Media Encoder. In here, I can set up several different formats to batch export if I wanted, then click here to start the export, and I'm done. I can actually go back into Premiere now and start working on something else while this renders in the background. And again, it's insane how responsive everything is, even though I'm editing 6K while exporting a big project all on this HP ZBook Studio workstation. But there you have it, my basic techniques for editing a fight scene all done on a crazy fast laptop, which you can find out more info on this workstation in the notes below.